As the prophet of esports, I rely on trustworthy and meaningful data every day. Data from our research partner YouGov offers the most complete view of esports fans and gamers in the world, providing context to who they are, what they think, the brands they buy, and things they do. YouGov's connected insights and research services inform strategy at every level. If you're a team, a brand, agency, or rights holder, you should be talking with YouGov. Their partners measure and maximize ROI and are telling compelling stories with data. Visit yougov.com/gaming-esports to learn more.
Guys, any other thoughts on this before that I didn't touch on, or any other questions from you guys that we didn't touch on before we move on here? Do you buy the idea that this was all sort of to make the bad news around the company go away?
I mean, that was the most disappointing part for me, was that Xbox and Phil Spencer had come out and said, we disavow what's happening in Activision Blizzard not that long ago. And then they bought them, and Bobby's staying on. And it's, these things happen and nobody loses except for the people that get hurt. The people in charge never lose.
But Lindsay, can I put my very cynical tinfoil hat on? Right?
Of course you can.
If I'm Phil Spencer, right? And I know that I want to buy Activision Blizzard. Well, what's like when you go to buy a car, you don't go and tell the car salesman, "Oh my God, I love this car. I'll pay whatever you want." Right? You go, I don't know. There's a little scratch here. Like, what is this?
But then everyone's congratulating Bobby on the high price. So they, in fact, did go to the car and say, "Wow, it's so great, even though we hate you."
But maybe Phil's move.
Yeah, perfect. Well,
I imagine most of the people who work at Activision have a decent amount of stock. So like, this is a win for them. And I think that working at Microsoft seems like a really good place. And Phil Spencer seems like he's building a pretty strong culture. So it seems like a step in the right direction, regardless if you're an Activision employee. Albeit now you're a much smaller fish in a gigantic pond. So there's always, the grass is always greener.
Sorry, go ahead, Jenny.
The number one winner is Bobby. You know what I mean? Like, not only to Jeff's point about buying it in the 90s and what he just sold it for, but in the next 20 years, you will unfortunately remember less about their recent corporate culture and allegations and investigations, and you'll just remember this massive acquisition and what Microsoft did with it, as well as their fundamental underlying properties and the nostalgia that comes into play with all of those. There was a little chance that Bobby was going to keep his job. I think he even came out saying, as soon as they find a replacement, I'll transition out. And this, he's the number one winner here. This was a brilliant. I mean,
just to be fair to Bobby, I don't know if we should paint Bobby as like Jeffrey Epstein here in this instance. I mean, there's a lot of find me a company in the gaming, and I don't mean to make a joke of any of these allegations by any stretch, just to be clear, but find me a company in the gaming space that hasn't had problems with this, unfortunately. So I don't think it's necessarily fair to make Bobby as too much of a villain, given he hasn't really been personally implicated in any of this per se.
No,
culture comes from the top.
He is going to come out very well financially. I think his salary was about 150, his comp was about 150 million. His stock's going to be worth about 300 to 400 million that I saw. 400 million, I think, was the number. And then I guess he's going to get some kind of golden parachute for being pushed out, which TBD how much that is. But my guess is he walks away with on the order of $1 billion, something like that. Total.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's being too hard on Bobby. I think he's just fine.
But every shareholder of Activision Blizzard, including all the employees, are also going to do very well. All right, guys, we can. Let me just read these two comments. Greg says Microsoft mentioned the importance of culture numerous times in that call. Said everything except Activision Blizzard culture needed improving. Interesting. I mean, I would hope that they improve the culture. Stuart says, what about 2K? That's Take-Two. And so I think Take-Two with Zynga becomes a more attractive acquisition target. And maybe that was Strauss's play all along. That maybe having the mobile component makes them more attractive to the big tech companies. that would be very clever, right? If he gets a big price tag for Take-Two off the heels of this acquisition, that would be quite the coup, I think.